Okay, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our information session for investor-owned utilities on preventing outages, enhancing the resilience of the electric grid. This is on grid resilience grants. So glad to have you join us today. We got a nice small group here to learn about this. My name is Jim Ostrowski. I work in EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'll be helping moderate today's session and just kind of hanging out in the background, helping out as well. A couple logistical details about today's session. Right now, all the lines are muted. If you have a question for us, you can type it into the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar, and we'll get to questions after the presentation is done. Also, we're recording this session like we do with all of our webinars and meetings. This one will be posted up on the YouTube channel that we have the next day or so. So you can, if you want to catch it, you can later on. Also, keep an eye on the chat, the Zoom chat, because we do put information in there, and Christine Grossman is with me as well. We'll put some stuff in the chat for us today to refer to. With that, I'm going to turn over to Lauren, and she's going to introduce our presenters. So go ahead, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. As Jim said, my name is Lauren McGurl, and I work for EGLE in the Energy Unit. We want to thank you for participating in this information session for the bill section 40101D for investor-owned utilities. Here's the agenda for today's information session. First, I want to introduce the panel we have today. I will have the panelists turn on their cameras, and if you can unmute yourself and say hello or welcome to group, that way everyone will be able to see you. And then once you're done welcoming, if you could just turn your camera off. First, we have Jake Wilkinson, the Energy Unit Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jake Wilkinson. Glad to be here. Thank you for joining, and happy to take any feedback that you might have on any of this as we look to finalize our documents.
Thank you. And then we have Julio Rovi with GDS Associates. He's been working with us, EGLE, with this program. He will also be presenting about the application portion.
Yes, good afternoon. Happy to be here. I provide consulting support to EGLE in this project, but GDS is known to some of the utilities here because you're our clients, as well as MPSC and some other projects. But I'm delighted to be here, and I hope to provide answers to any questions you may have on this grant opportunity.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Nate Vernon with the Michigan Public Service Commission. I'm sorry. He is an analyst for the Strategic Operations Division. I'm going to pass the mic to Nate so he can welcome everyone.
Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. Excited to work with you all on this federal funding opportunity. For those who don't know me, I work at the Public Service Commission, where I focus on federal funding opportunities and maximizing the potential of those opportunities to improve our grid infrastructure here in Michigan. So today I'm going to provide a brief overview of the MPSC's commitment to reliability and resiliency, and how this federal funding opportunity can further those goals. A large part of my role here, as I mentioned, is engaging with stakeholders across the state to ensure that we maximize the ability of federal funding opportunities, like the Preventing Power Outages and Enhancing the Electric Grid program, or otherwise known as 40101D, to improve the reliability and resiliency of the grid here in Michigan. I'm excited to work with you all on the successful implementation of these formula dollars. Improving the reliability and resiliency of the grid, and particularly the electric distribution system, is one of the Michigan Public Service Commission's principal priorities. While progress towards a more reliable grid has been made through MPSC rate cases, integrated resource planning proceedings, commission orders, and a variety of work groups that many of you may have already participated on, climate change and the increasingly destructive and frequent extreme weather events that accompany it, I think we can all agree, have posed massive challenges to all of our abilities to provide reliable power to customers in this changing environment. In recent years, ice has covered lines and disrupted power. High winds and storms have damaged power lines and adjacent vegetation, and Michiganders across the state have suffered as a result. In February and March of 2023, many thousands of Michiganders lost power for several days, and DTE reported it as the worst storm they have endured in 50 years and also the most expensive to restore. These power outages put some of our state's most vulnerable people at risk, particularly the elderly and those who rely on reliable electricity to power critical medical devices. And I think these power outages underscore the challenges we face in Michigan and the potential of federal funding opportunities to help us meet that moment. I think we all have a duty to work together to invest in a more reliable grid in response to these challenges. Simultaneously, the move to electrify the grid, especially through federal legislation like the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, means that changes to our grid are moving forward at a rapid pace, placing additional pressures on not just our supply of energy, but our grid's electric distribution system as new means of energy generation, storage, and interconnection reach the grid, from solar panels to batteries to electric vehicles. Preparing our grid for electrification while also making our grid more reliable and more resilient, all while maintaining our shared commitment to equity and energy affordability, is a monumental task, but I'm confident that together we can all find a path forward. The billions of dollars in federal funding opportunities provided to Michigan by the IIJA, or Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and IRA, or Inflation Reduction Act, are one such strategy we can leverage to meet the moment. Section 40101D of the Grid Resilience and Innovative Partnerships Program is one of many federal funding opportunities that we can all use to improve reliability in our state. The formula dollars available under the Preventing Outages and Enhancing Resilience of the Electric Grid program has the potential to set the tone for how Michigan leverages federal funding opportunities to maximize improvements in the reliability and resiliency of the power that Michiganders rely on. The dollars allotted to Michigan by this program provide us the opportunity to set best practices, generate knowledge for future opportunities, and set the tone for how Michigan will take full advantage of both the IIJA and the IRA, ultimately maximizing tangible benefits to Michiganders. We are eager to work together with all of you on developing the RFP and reviewing proposals, demonstrating how these dollars can support enhanced grid reliability, prepare our state for electrification, and create good paying jobs right here in Michigan. I want to thank everybody again for being here today, and I'm looking forward to working with you. I will pass it back over to you, Lauren. Thanks.
Thank you, Nate. Today, I just wanted to start with the agenda. We are going to provide a review of the program updates and a tentative timeline, as well as go over the application, and then we're going to open up for Q&A and some conversation. So here's some updates since the last public hearing we had in November of 2022. Since then, we have submitted our application to the DOE in December 2022. The DOE updated their ALRD, or their Administrative and Legal Requirements document, requesting that we include both year 1 and year 2 in the application. We updated the application to include both years and resubmitted it in March of 2023. We are currently waiting to hear back from the DOE and have them review the application. We do know that DOE has issued some funding to states and tribes, but the state of Michigan has not heard back yet from the DOE. Here is the tentative timeline. Again, I want to reiterate that we are still waiting to hear back from the DOE on our application. Therefore, these dates are tentative. And again, the funding is for both year 1 and 2. So we're hoping to hear back from the DOE shortly, which we were hoping to get the RFP out in June of 2023, and then allow the application to be open for a little bit, and it would close mid-July. And then a grant agreements, those would have the start of the project dates, and hopefully to wrap it up in 2025. Now I'm going to pass the mic to Julio Rovi from GDS Associates to talk about the application.
Thank you very much. And so I think I need the I need to press something to get the screen. Share screen. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so good afternoon. My turn to share some updates with you. And I'm basically going to be focusing on things that have changed and things that are updates. And I'm going to touch briefly on a couple of things from before, just to emphasize the key points. So the first thing is to just make sure that we are clear about what has not changed. The focus of the application is the same. Nate and Lauren explained. It's all about resiliency and improving reliability. It is also about helping mitigate the impacts of increased storms and other impacts from climate change. Eligible parties are going to be the same, and eligible activities are remaining the same. From the original funding opportunity we talked about last November from what we are looking at now. Another thing that has not changed is that the IOUs will operate as regulated providers under MPSC oversight. So you may be looking at dockets related to the use of the grant funding, which would not be the same process done with co-ops and munis. And finally, another thing that has not changed is that 50% of the funds will go to the large operators and 50% of the funds will go to the small operators. And a number of the smaller IOUs, the ones that are below the 4 terawatt threshold, fall into the category of those small operators that are together collectively getting 50% of the funds of this grant. Another thing that has not changed, as I mentioned, eligible activities remain the same. And all of you in this call fundamentally are doing or have done and plan to continue doing things that are in this list. These are traditional maintenance and operation and system recovery types of things. So we do not really expect that there's going to be any surprises or questions about the types of projects that you all might be doing. Now we have listed, if you go back and look at the original presentation, we sorted these out slightly different. And in this slide, we have the ones that are simpler. But there's also an expanded list of items that are eligible. And some of you that have operations that are more complex or have other types of needs that allow you to serve better underserved communities or improve reliability may be looking at some of these more complex technologies. One thing that I will mention, I won't get into it in this project, in this presentation, but there are some things that are excluded categorically, and one of them is generation. So no generation is allowed from these grants. So even though in one of the bullets it includes things such as microgrids, we're not really sure why they included microgrids if you can't have generation. But anyway, this is what the application says. So next, other than the technical merit of the projects that you may wish to submit for consideration, for consideration, these other dimensions are continue to be a priority. Trying to figure out with these grant dollars, the metrics that can demonstrate that there has been an improvement in the service, the performance, and reductions on the interruptions and things like that, which are typically the type of metrics that you provide as utilities and that you track as utilities. So we do look at the possibility of understanding these costs, because part of the reason that some of the maintenance is deferred or postponed is because it's not very cost effective to some of these underserved communities. So we're balancing that these funds are intended to make up for that. So there will be some interest in monitoring this to see what the economics and cost effectiveness of that would be like. But ultimately, with this new set of instructions from the ALRD, which makes the first tranche of projects 2-year projects, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. We're still thinking that it's going to be fundamentally the types of activities that you already do, and that through this funding, you're going to be able to get to more underserved communities and maybe reduce some energy burden to some folks. The energy justice component continues to be a great area of interest, as well as considerations related to risk mitigation and labor force considerations. And if you're one of the smaller utilities and are looking at a small pool of funds, it's very hard to try to mix all of these things into a simpler project. There will certainly be more interest on the large utilities that are getting 50%, the 2 large utilities, to perhaps be able to, help incorporate these items in the proposals you submit. But for all of the proposals, utilities large and small, these will be factors that will be taken into consideration in the evaluation and determination of awards. Things also, just a reminder, if any of you were not with this from the beginning, this is formula money. It's awarded, it will come from the Department of Energy, federal funds. EGLE will administer this grant, and there's going to be a 1-to-1 match for the large operators and a 1-to-3 match for the small operators. So again, those of you that fall into the category of sales below 4 terawatt hours fall into the category of small operators. So your match is 1-to-3. The awards have the criteria that we just talked about, and you will see in the proposal there's going to be a section explaining the award criteria, and so you will be seeing these a reference to these very same items. Now, what has changed? What has changed is that 2022 and 2023 are merged, which means that before we were looking at somewhere in the vicinity of $8 million to be divided between all of the utilities. Now we're looking at $16 million to be distributed by all utilities. So it's basically twice the pool for each one of the 2 cohorts, large operators and small operators. And after this initial period and doubling of the pool for subsequent years, 2024 to 2026, it will go back to about $8 million per year. It's about 7.5 from the Fed plus matching dollars from the state. Another thing that changes is that the smaller IUUs can submit joint applications. We're exploring trying to simplify paperwork, given that we think that the small operators are going to be buying for significantly smaller amounts of money. And we are looking for ways to streamline that process and make it easier for applicants and for the reviewers alike. Let's see what's next. So some of these improvements and some of these ideas about trying to make it simpler have come from feedback we have received from utilities. We have placed calls and some folks have responded. And thanks to those responded, primarily folks from the public power utilities have been incorporated in an attempt to, make this simple, transparent, and yet comprehensive and impactful for the objectives. So, once more, we call on you. If you can identify things, processes or ideas that can make this easier while maintaining the integrity, we are looking to hear from you and have that conversation. So what's going to be happening? I'm not quite as optimistic as Lauren that we're going to get something this month and we'll be issuing it next month. We do have that timetable, but we also know that we really can't control the time frame of work for the Department of Energy. They're going to send it whenever they're going to send it. And what we do know is that once the award arrives, the clock at EGLE starts in order for EGLE to issue the RFP. And one thing that is under the control of EGLE is, sending out an invitation, so we can maybe move ahead and incorporate you in the vendor list for the state. And we have, the basic information about the company, what it does, and things like that, which are probably already in some database in the state. Who's going to be the project manager and who's the legal representative and communication representative, things that are going to be remaining pretty much the same for the duration of this grant. And I remind you one more time that the grant is going to be annually for 5 years, but the complete period of performance is 10 years. So we do anticipate that the same utilities will be applying for multiple years. So there are some economies and gains to be made if we just have that database and we can be maybe customizing some of the paperwork early on. So we reduce the amount of time it takes to respond. If any of the small operators in this call think that there's an advantage to you, you can go and work with a trade association, a consulting firm, whomever you want to try to pool and submit a group response. The intention here is to standardize some of the responses, particularly if the proposals and the technical nature of the items you're asking the money for are fundamentally easy and easy to document, easy to explain. The response must include the specific measures and all of the Justice 40 related justifications. The grant and negotiation and relationship will be directly between the utility and EGLE, which means that the party that is submitting the grant on behalf of you is not a party to the grant, nor do they have any financial responsibility on the performance of the utility. This last bullet is just a continuing opening for any of you that wish to provide some insights and ideas about how to go about it with specific recommendations. We are eager to add those if we can. So some closing thoughts. This really is intended to help maximize benefits for underserved communities. So this is an opportunity to do that. DOE informed the states that they will be issuing further instructions, which is good news, bad news, because they may issue new instructions that are going to delay the process. But we're also optimistic that they are considering ways of streamlining this. Just as a point to consider, once you respond to the RFP and you send it, it will be evaluated by a panel of agencies in the state. And once there is a pre-approval, those documents are sent to the Department of Energy for final authorization of releasing the money. So there is going to be an additional period of time there between the moment EGLE sends you a letter saying, your grant is on track to be funded, and the moment that there's another note saying your grant will be funded. That period of time is where we're also looking for ways to reduce that. by making sure that we can provide standardized, to the extent that we can, provide some standardization in the responses. So DOE sees Michigan applications as easy to review and easy to approve. So finally, just make sure that you keep a dialogue with us. If we have any questions, with the Michigan Public Service Commission and EGLE will be interested in getting your feedback. And of course, I'm also at your service should I be useful in answering any specific questions. So with that, I am done with my part of the presentation. I turn it back to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Julio, for that. So next, I wanted to let everyone know that we do have a website up for the Grid Resiliency Grants. We have been updating it as we get more information, and we'll be updating it as we receive information from DOE. And once we have a better timeline, as Julio said, we're still waiting to hear back from DOE. Another place, other things are on the website. The RFP will be there once it's available. Currently, the application budget form is already available if you just want to look it over and see what that looks like. And there are other resources like links to the past meeting recordings, the two we just had with the co-ops and the munis as well, or the cooperative and municipal utilities as well, and the hearing that we had back in 2022. Along with their PowerPoints. This session will also be posted on the website. So the easiest way to get there is to go to the Grid Resiliency website, is to go to michigan.gov/energy, and you will have some options, and you want to choose the funding opportunities. And on that page, it would just be the Grid Resiliency page, and it should pop up for you. And I believe a link will be in the chat as well for you to access that. Next, we're going to open up for question and answers. However, we're also looking for feedback on the program as we're still developing the RFP. So if you want to provide that now, you're more than welcome to. Or the next slide will have all of our content information, which will come up after the Q&A session. If you'd rather email us and provide that feedback or have any questions. Again, this presentation will be posted on the website as well in case you aren't able to copy the emails down quickly enough. And that, I'm going to pass it over to Jim to moderate the Q&A session, and I will ask the panelists to turn on their cameras.
Hey, thanks, Lauren. Yeah, just a reminder to everyone, if you have a question for the team here, just type it into the question box on your Zoom toolbar. Also, if you'd rather, you can click the raise hand icon and we can unmute your mic. It looks like we do have a person on the phone. So if you're listening on the phone, you can hit #2 and that'll show us that your hand is raised and we'll call on you. We don't have any questions in the queue right now, you guys. So I'll give it a minute to see if anybody doesn't have any questions. While we're doing that, just want to remind you all that in the chat, Christine did drop in a copy of the presentation that we just saw, so you can download that if you'd like to see that. Also links to the website, the Grid Resiliency webpage, and contact information for all of our presenters today. So I'm not seeing any questions, team. So that does happen sometimes, but I guess if you want, Lauren, if you have anything you want to add that you think this group would find of interest.
I have a question for participants. Are they interested in responding? I'm interested in hearing some people will raise their hand.
Yeah, if you're interested, if you're thinking, you can either click the raise hand icon or you can put it in the question box. So yes, that'd be helpful. So you got one person with their hand up, looks like, at least. While a couple of people are hands up, and so a question did come in while we're waiting here, kind of stalling a little bit.
Wait, there's 7. Hope Allen.
Yeah, we got several people with the same name registered, so it looks like the link was shared around a little bit. Happens sometimes.
Okay,
Okay, so it seems like a quick turnaround for the application. Can you provide some insight as to what the requirements may be?
Are they saying that we are going to have a quick turnaround, or the RFP is open for not?
They're just saying it looks like a quick turnaround for the application.
in
So
the
maybe
in
get
the in the
application.
timetable you provided, it appears like a very, very short turnaround.
Oh, I think we have a standard time. I'm new to the energy unit. So, Jake, I believe we have a standard time that they're typically open for. Is that correct? Is it?
I mean, yeah, we usually leave them open for a month to 45 days. I mean, that can be adjusted as needed, and that would be something that, you know, if you have feedback, that'd be something we would welcome. You know, we can allow longer time frames for that, again, as needed. It just depends on what we think is reasonable, and that's dependent on our own experience, but then also feedback that we get from those interested in applying.
Lauren also pointed out that several of the documents that are going to be part of the RFP packet are already posted. So we would encourage you to go ahead and familiarize yourselves with them. If any of the utilities on the call have received any grant on any topic from EGLE, the grant language is pretty standard as well. And you know, you may want to take a look at that as well.
Yeah, that's part of today's info session. So if people have feedback or comments, especially on timelines, please let us know. You know, you can put it in here, or you can send an email to Lauren or Jake or whatever. All right, had another question. Can you elaborate on whether, because you talked about microgrid projects earlier.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on whether microgrid projects will or won't be eligible? For example, would the distribution components of a microgrid project be eligible for funding, while the generation assets would not receive funding?
Yes. So in a weird how do I say this? When I think of a microgrid, I think of all of the components of a microgrid. Otherwise, it's not really a microgrid. So yeah, I'm, you know, as a reader, as an engineer looking at this, it puzzles me a little bit that it says the microgrids are eligible, and then in the next page it says that no generation is allowed. So I would venture that that the person asking the question is asking it correctly. All of the other components of the microgrid would be eligible except generation. Okay. Now, would you actually call that a microgrid? I'm not really sure. It could be that you're asking for money for, you know, other DER projects, or some optimization of circuits, or you know, other I want to say adaptive technologies, and all of those appear as eligible activities as well.
Right. Thanks,
I
Lou.
think to answer the question, you can always just refer to the funding opportunity announcement itself. Like, that's probably the best source of information. That's the official document where they defined eligible projects.
Yeah, and I will just second off that. They do address a question about that in the FAQ through the DOE about microgrids. So that's a good place to look as well.
Okay. This person's referring to an FAQ document, frequently asked questions I reviewed, discusses prescriptive projects. Is there a list or a definition for what EGLE sees as a prescriptive project?
I think we're in the process of finalizing that as we speak.
Okay, good. And where can I find the documents that you referred to as part of the response? And they're given email if it's easier to email them. But is there someplace on the website, Lauren, or?
Yeah, so our documents, like the spreadsheet for the budget, that is on the grid resiliency website, and that's already out there. Other documents, I think the Q&A or the the frequently asked questions, FAQ, is also located on there as well.
Yeah.
So that, like I said, that link should be in the chat. And if it's not, it's Michigan / energy. And then there will be some options. You want to choose the funding opportunities, and then grid resiliency should show up right in the middle of the next page.
And we're trying to post all relevant information and documents to that website. And so if there's something you're looking for and can't find it, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll try and make sure that we can get that to you and update the website.
All right. All right, well, looks like that is all the questions we have. So, Lauren, you got anything else to wrap us up with?
No, that is all that I have. Again, here's the contact information for everyone that we have. So if you guys have any additional questions or would rather provide feedback through an email address, I know we have one person on phone, so I'll spell out my email address. It's McGirl L. So it's MAGIRLL@michigan.gov. And again, we have Jake Wilkinson, our energy manager. Julie Stavelin was not able to join us today, but she is the MMD Assistant Division Director. Then we have Julio Rovi from GDS Associates and Nate Bernan from MPSC. So thank you everyone for attending and taking your time this afternoon.
All right, thanks team. Just want a reminder that we did record today's session, and we'll send an email out to everyone who registered with a link to recording and some of the links that we provided today. So thanks for the team for joining us, and thanks to all of you for tuning in today. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.